is responsible for this thing in your womb? So you've been carrying an unwanted child under my roof and you hid it all along.
A pregnant teenager named Anne stood bleeding on cold marble floors as her own father, a powerful senator, kicked her stomach and threw her into the dark night. Years later, when that same senator faced complete destruction, fate played its cruelest joke. The only lawyer who could save him was the daughter he had tried to destroy. But would she choose revenge or forgiveness? Come with me as we uncover this powerful story. The city was quiet that day, but inside Senator Donald's mansion, trouble was growing fast. "Who is responsible for this thing in your womb?" Donald shouted. "So you've been carrying an unwanted child under my roof, and you hid it all along." His voice shook the wide sitting room. His face, always calm, was now red with anger. In front of him stood Anne, his only child. She held her stomach with shaky hands. Tears rolled down her cheeks. The helpless girl flinched at her father's rage. "Daddy, please," Anne said in a low voice. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared." "You are pregnant," Donald roared. "Pregnant and carrying a bastard in your womb, after all the money I spent on you? After all the schools I sent you to?" Mrs. Donald rushed to Anne and held her shoulders. "Darling, calm down," she begged. "She is our daughter. Please, let us talk to her." "Talk?" Donald shouted at his wife. "She has dragged my name into the mud. I am a senator. My enemies will laugh at me. The press will write lies, and my opponents will use it against me." Anne cried harder. She wanted to explain that the man who promised to marry her had disappeared as soon as he heard she was pregnant. But her father's anger swallowed her words. "You will not destroy me," Donald said. "Not in this house." He moved closer. Anne stepped back, trembling. Mrs. Donald held his arm. "Please, she is carrying a child." "Pity her condition," she whispered. But Donald's anger was too strong. He pushed his wife aside, and she fell onto one of the sofas. His hands landed on Anne as he pounded her mercilessly. And with one quick kick, he hit Anne's stomach so hard. Anne screamed. Pain tore through her body. She fell to the shiny marble floor and held her belly. Mrs. Donald knelt beside her. "Donald, stop! You will kill her, please. I beg you." But Donald shouted louder. "Get out of my house. Leave before I lose all control." Anne tried to stand, but sharp pain bent her over. Blood stained her gown. Her breathing came in short gasps. She was bleeding. "Daddy, please," she said weakly. I am sorry." But the senator's face was hard with rage. "Out," he barked. Mrs. Donald reached for Anne, but Donald's hard stare froze her. "If you follow her, don't come back," he warned. Anne's heart broke. She wanted to stay in her mother's arms, but she couldn't drag her mother into more trouble. She hugged her stomach and walked slowly to the door. Outside, the night was cold. The big house behind her looked bright, but it felt like ice. Anne's eyes blurred with tears as she stepped into the street. She walked without knowing where she was going. Cars passed on the main road, horns echoed, but no one stopped. She felt like the only person in the whole city. At last, she reached a small shop that had closed for the night. Her legs became weak. She fell to the ground, holding her belly tight. "God, please," she whispered. "Save me and my little child. Don't let us die." Minutes felt like hours. Then a small car slowed down, and a woman wearing a nurse's uniform jumped out. "Oh my goodness," the nurse gasped. "My dear, are you okay?" Anne tried to speak, but only managed to let out a weak sound. The nurse knelt, checking the blood on Anne's dress. "You need a clinic right away," she said, helping Anne into the car. The drive was short but felt long. Anne held onto her stomach and prayed for the tiny life inside her. When they arrived at a small clinic, 2 attendants rushed Anne inside. The nurse told them what had happened. They placed Anne on a bed and checked her. "She has lost some blood, but the baby's heartbeat is steady," one of them said. "We need to help her fast." Anne drifted between pain and darkness. Memories came crashing inside her head as she laid between life and death. Birthdays her father had pulkameed, the proud smile when she finished secondary school, the day he promised to send her abroad to continue her studies. How had love turned to hate so fast? It was all confusing to think of. Morning came slowly. Anne opened her eyes. The nurse sat beside her with a warm smile. "You're safe now," she said gently. "My name is Nurse Kemi. You and your baby are fine, but you need to rest." Anne burst into quiet tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Do you want me to call your parents?" Kemi asked. Anne shook her head instantly. "No, please. Don't tell them. They don't want me," Kemi sighed. For a moment she looked at her with pity. "Then we'll find another way," she whispered. Over the next weeks, Kemi became Anne's helper. She gave Anne a small room at the back of the clinic. Sometimes she shared her meals with her. Anne, still weak, tried to help, folding sheets, cleaning, arranging papers. She wanted to give something back. A few months passed and Anne's Tommy grew bigger. When the time came, Anne gave birth to a baby girl. Her cries filled the clinic room. Anne's tears mixed with a smile, and she named her Maya, meaning hope. She held Maya close and made a promise. "I will protect you, my love. I will give you a good life, no matter what." Days turned into months. Anne's body healed, but her heart still hurt. At night, she sometimes saw her father's face in her mind, the way it twisted with anger. She wished she could erase it. But there was nothing she could do. One evening, Kemi sat with Anne outside the clinic. Rain had just finished falling. Kemi looked at her and began. "You're young and smart," she said. "I know you have gone through a lot. But don't let the pain bury you. What did you dream of being?" "I wanted to be a lawyer," Anne said softly. "I wanted to help people who couldn't fight for themselves." "Then you must still follow that dream," Kemi replied. "Your story isn't over." Her words planted a seed in Anne's heart. She started to study again. She joined evening classes. While Maya stayed with a kind babysitter, Anne worked hard on her books. Sometimes she went hungry so Maya could eat. Sometimes she cried quietly when no one saw, but she kept going. Years passed. Anne got her degree, then finished law school. On the day she was called to bar, Anne stood proud with her head high. She was happy for this moment, but she felt broken. She had always dreamt of a day like this, but to have imagined it happen without her family was never part of the plan. As she stood, tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She just had to be strong for her daughter. Soon, she found a job in a small law office. Her bosses liked her sharp mind and calm way of speaking. Maya grew into a lively 6-year-old girl with bright eyes and a laugh that could catch people's attention. She often asked about her grandfather, but Anne always changed the topic. The wound was still too deep. Still, on some nights, when Maya was asleep, Anne would cry silently, stand by the window and look at the lights of the city. She wondered if her father ever thought of her. Did he regret that night? Sometimes she imagined walking into his office, dressed as a lawyer. But the fear of rejection kept her quiet. Far away, Senator Donald's life was also changing. He was still powerful, but storms were forming. Rivals spoke of fraud. Newspapers wrote stories about stolen lands. Donald tried to fight, but the noise grew, and by this time Maya turned 6. Anne had become known in the city as a lawyer who fought for ordinary people. She had won hard cases. Judges respected her, clients trusted her, but nobody at work knew about her past. One day, Anne stepped into the busy law firm. She wore her black jacket neatly over a white blouse. The air smelled of coffee and paper. Phones rang, shoes clicked on polished floors, people spoke in low, serious voices. She took a deep breath. Maya was already in school with her purple lunchbox. Life was not perfect, but it was steady. Anne had built something solid from the pain of her past. Her colleagues saw only a calm, sharp lawyer. They didn't know about the nights she cried over heavy books, or the days she walked long roads so Maya could have food. Her strength was born from scars she kept hidden. That afternoon, Mr. Jacobs, the firm's senior partner, sent for her. His office was large, with glass walls and shelves full of law books. He looked up from a file and smiled. "Anne," he said kindly, "a very sensitive case has just come in. It involves one of the country's most powerful senators. He's facing claims of fraud and illegal estates. And the media is already watching." Anne held her pen still. "And you want me to handle it?" she asked calmly. Jacobs nodded. "I believe you're the right person. You're calm, thorough, and you don't get scared easily. That's what this man needs." "Who is the senator?" she asked. I can't reveal his name yet, Jacob said. For now, just know that it's a high-stake case. If you agree, you'll meet his representative next week. Anne thanked him and walked back to her desk. Her heart beat fast. The word senator opened an old wound. A flash of her father's angry face came to her mind, but she pushed it away. Well, not every senator is my father, she told herself. That night, after putting Maya to sleep, she sat alone in the small living room and whispered a quiet prayer. Lord, if I'm meant to do this, please give me strength. A week later, Anne sat in a boardroom with Mr. Jacobs and the senator's friend. The man, tall and grey-haired, introduced himself as Mr. Raymond. Senator Donald is under heavy attack, Raymond explained. An opposition group is trying to take his estates and destroy his name. He needs a lawyer who is sharp and trustworthy. At the name, Anne froze inside. Wait a minute, Donald? That name. Could it the senator? Her dad? She wondered. Her breath caught, but she kept her face calm. Raymond went on. The senator is tired. He hasn't been eating. He says whoever defends him will be saving his life. Jacob smiled. Then Anne is perfect. She's one of our best, he said, glancing at Anne. Raymond nodded at her. I believe you'll do well. The hearing is set for next month. Anne excused herself as soon as the meeting ended. She went straight to the ladies' room, locked the door, and leaned on the sink. Donald. Her father? She didn't know if she could handle this. After all these years, life was bringing him back into her world. The man who once kicked her out bleeding was now in need. And she was the one chosen to stand for him. She splashed water on her face and whispered, Lord, what are you doing? What is your plan? She could refuse. She could let someone else handle it. But another voice whispered, maybe you were made for this. She tried to steady her racing mind, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was going to shake everything she had known. The days before court were long. Anne buried herself in files and evidence, learning every detail of the case. She traced each claim against Donald back to its source. Her mind worked like a machine, but her heart trembled each time she read his name. At home, little Maya often sat on the floor with her crayons while Anne highlighted documents. She didn't know the storm inside her mother, a battle between old pain and the call to forgive. One evening, Anne opened her Bible and found an old photo tucked inside. Herself at 15, sitting between her smiling parents. She ran her finger over her father's face. Did he ever regret it? Did he even remember her? She wondered. Tears welled in her eyes. She broke down, almost crying, and she quickly put it aside and whipped her eyes. Meanwhile, in his quiet mansion, Senator Donald sat in his study, surrounded by newspapers and files. His once proud shoulders slumped. His wife, Florence, stepped in gently. Have you eaten? She asked. He shook his head. I'm not hungry, Florence. These people want to ruin me, he said in a low voice. You have a good lawyer now, Florence reminded him. Yes, Raymond says she's sharp. He sighed deeply. I only hope she is honest. I can't afford to lose everything. Florence stayed quiet. She thought of Anne, as she always did. For years, she had wished her husband would call their daughter, say he was sorry, and bring her home. But pride had stood in the way. That night, she whispered a prayer as Donald stared at the ceiling. Lord, let this lawyer bring help, and if there's still a way for our family to heal, please make it happen. Finally, the morning of the first hearing came. Anne dressed in a clean black skirt suit and a crisp white shirt. She dropped Maya at school, hugging her a little longer than usual. At the courthouse, cameras flashed as officials arrived. Anne walked through the crowd, steady and calm. Inside, she set out her papers on the lawyer's table. A few minutes later, Senator Donald entered with Mr. Raymond. He looked older, thinner, weighed down by scandal. At first, he didn't see her. His eyes searched the judge's bench. When Raymond led him closer, his gaze landed on Anne. That moment, he stopped instantly. He couldn't believe who he was seeing. He hadn't expected it, even in the dream. Anne, he whispered, his voice cracked. She looked up, calm but unreadable. Good morning, Senator. She greeted. The room felt small, filled with memory. That instant, Donald saw, in a rush, the face of the girl he had thrown out. The blood on the marble floor, the years he had lost, and his cruelty to her when she had cried that night. Mr. Raymond looked at them, confused. "You two know each other?" he asked. Donald's lips shook, but Anne interrupted gently. We should focus on the case, sir. Court is about to start." She turned back to her notes, giving him space. As her father watched, something broke inside him. The girl he had once cast away was now the one standing between him and ruin. A chill ran through him. Would she use this moment to destroy him, or would she offer mercy for the wounds he had carved into her life? Soon, the clerk called the case. Cameras clicked, reporters leaned forward, ready to write every word. The fight over Senator Donald's estates had filled the news, fraud or frame-up. Anne stood, smoothing her black skirt. Her hands were steady, though her heart pounded hard. Every lonely night of study, every tear she had hidden, every dream for Maya's future, all of it had led here. She glanced at Donald. He sat at the defense table, fingers tight together, and his face looked pale. For a moment his eyes met hers. They were full of shame and something close to pleading. "May it please the court," Anne said, her voice calm but clear. "I speak for Senator Donald, accused of fraud and illegal estates. We will prove these claims are false." Born only from political rivalry, her father sat still, his heart raced. Across the room, the opposition lawyers grinned. They showed thick binders of evidence, including bank slips, property papers, and witness notes. They painted Donald as greedy and corrupt. When Anne rose again, the room grew still. She moved through each point with quiet power, showing forged signatures, weak witnesses, and twisted words. "Mr. Witness," she asked one man in a steady tone, "is it true this document was prepared by the prosecution's aide?" "Yes," the man said softly. "And were you promised a post if Senator Donald loses?" The witness shifted, fixing his eyes to the floor. "Yes, but I only wanted—" "Answer the question, please." "Yes," the witness admitted. Gasps filled the air. Donald stared at Anne, amazed. He didn't believe she would defend him like this. He was expecting her cruel revenge, like the same way he had treated her years back. His eyes filled with regret. Hour after hour, she spoke for him. She told the story of his years of public service, scholarships, hospitals, children he had helped. Her words were like clear water washing away mud. And more than once, Donald's eyes filled with tears. The daughter he had cast out was now standing taller than any lawyer he had ever known, fighting for him. During the break, Donald slipped into a quiet hall. He leaned on the wall, hand on his chest. Raymond walked over. "Are you all right?" he asked. Donald couldn't control the emotions anymore. I don't deserve this," he murmured. "I don't deserve her." Raymond frowned. "Who?" "My lawyer," Donald said, his voice shaking. "She's my daughter." Raymond's eyes widened. "Anne? The child you—" Donald nodded, his face shone with pain. "I almost destroyed her. Now she's saving me." Raymond put a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe this is grace, Senator. Don't waste it." Donald closed his eyes. He couldn't say any more words. When court resumed, Anne gave her closing words. "Your lordship," she said firmly, "politics must never be used to crush an honest man. The evidence proves Senator Donald gained his estates lawfully. The claims are lies meant to blind the public. Quote. She paused and turned to her father, looking straight into his eyes. Senator Donald swallowed hard as he looked at her. Then she continued, "I humbly ask that this court dismiss the case and return his good name." She sat, calm on the outside, though her heart raced. The judge left to consider the case. The room hummed with whispers. Donald could not stop looking at Anne, as if trying to catch every detail of her face. When the judge returned, everyone rose. "This court finds," he said, "that the prosecution failed to prove its claims. Senator Donald is cleared of all charges." Case dismissed. The gavel struck. Applause broke out before the bailiff called for order. Donald's eyes filled with tears of regrets and gratitude. He stood slowly, staring at Anne, the woman who had just saved him. Anne packed her files quietly. She felt no need to celebrate, only a deep peace. Outside, reporters rushed in. Anne thanked the court for fairness, but spoke nothing about her life. She stepped aside as Donald faced the cameras. When the crowd cleared, Donald walked to her. Each step was heavy, like crossing a bridge of regret. "Ah," he said softly. She turned, staring into his eyes. For a moment, they both stood there, silent. I don't know how to begin, Donald finally said. His voice broke. I wronged you more than any father should. I let pride and shame blind me. I hurt you, and the child you carried. Please, forgive me. Anne's lips shook. Memories came flashing back. The marble floor, the kick, the bleeding and pain, nights feeding baby Maya with shaking hands. She couldn't control the emotions, but she blinked back her tears. I forgave you long ago, she whispered. I couldn't carry that weight forever. This time, Donald couldn't control his own tears. He wept openly. You are far better than I deserve, he sobbed. Just then, a small voice rang out. Mummy! Maya came running, holding her little backpack. Anne scooped her up. Maya laughed, unaware of the storm around her. Donald froze, staring at the child. This is the life he once tried to end. His knees weakened. Slowly he bent down. Tears slid down his face. May I? He asked. Anne hesitated, then nodded, with tears in her eyes. Donald gently took Maya in his arms. The moment the little girl entered his arms, the mighty senator broke down again, completely. Deep emotional tears he couldn't control even if he wanted to roll down his cheeks. People nearby wiped their eyes. Even Raymond turned aside, blinking fast. Then Donald cleared his throat and looked at Anne. Please, come home with me. Your mother will be so happy. Let me try to make things right. Anne looked at Maya, then back at him. The walls around her heart finally fell. Al, all right, she stammered softly. Together they walked toward Donald's car and drove off. The ride to Senator Donald's house was quiet. Maya sat between them, swinging her little legs innocently. Donald kept stealing glances at his daughter, as if he was afraid she might vanish if he blinked. Once Anne caught his eyes. He looked away quickly. Guilt was still written all over his face. At a red light, he finally spoke. I don't even know where to start fixing what I broke, he said in a low voice. Anne looked at him gently. You don't have to fix it all at once, Dad, she replied. Healing is slow. We'll take it step by step. The momentum she called him, Dad. Donald's heart melted. He could no longer deny missing his little angel called him that in years. He nodded, pressing his lips together. I will spend the rest of my life earning your trust. When they reached the house, the iron gates swung open. Guards saluted as the car rolled into the wide compound. Fountains danced in the warm evening air. The big house stood ahead, lights glowed through its windows. Anne's heart beat fast. She had not been here since the night she was chased out. She squeezed Maya's hand and walked on. Inside, the house still smelled of roses and polished wood, reminding Anne of when she used to live here. Expensive lamps glowed softly. Standing by the stairs was her mother, Florence. She froze for a moment. Immediately, she sighted her daughter. Then her face broke into tears. Anne, Florence cried, rushing forward. She hugged her daughter tightly, sobbing with joy. Then she knelt to Maya's level, touching her cheek. And this must be my sweet granddaughter. Anne nodded calmly. Maya smiled, shy but happy. Hello, she said. Donald stood back, his hands folded, watching them with tender eyes. Anne turned to him at last and spoke quietly. Come closer, Dad. He stepped forward, joining them. For the first time in many years, the three of them stood together as a family. They moved to the sitting room, where servants brought food and drinks. Maya sat on a cushion, looking around in wonder at the big room. Dinner was gentle. Donald listened while Anne told stories of her life, how she studied law, the kind people who helped her, the nights she felt like giving up, but kept going because of Maya. Donald's heart ached for all the moments he had missed, yet he felt proud of the brave woman she had become. It was a moment worth sharing together. For the first time in years, laughter filled the house. Maya showed her drawings from school. Donald promised to frame one in his study. Anne caught herself smiling, and this time not a forced smile, but one that came from deep inside. She looked around the familiar sitting room and framed family photos on the wall. Her eyes lingered on one picture of herself as a little girl, sitting on her father's lap, both of them laughing. And for a moment, she felt the weight of all the years that had been lost. Birthdays, graduations, quiet evenings that should have been shared. A warm tear slid down her cheek. Donald noticed and, without speaking, placed a hand gently over hers on the table. She didn't pull away. That silent touch said more than 1,000 words of regret. His eyes were full of regrets, but more than anything, they carried something he didn't show her. That night he beat her and threw her out of the house. A deep, aching fear of losing the only child he had ever loved, and the unbearable weight of knowing he had almost destroyed her forever again. And that night, all the anger, pride, and shame he had carried for years seemed to crumble, leaving him small, broken, and ever grateful for the chance to see his daughter safe, strong, and alive again. But most importantly, forgiving him and standing up for him when he least expected it. Lovely's anger and pride can tear families apart, but love and forgiveness can bring them back together. Do not let shame or rage keep you from the people who matter most. If you have been hurt, healing begins the moment you choose to forgive. What do you think of this story? Do you think Anne did well by defending and fighting for Dad after what he did to her? Do you think she deserved to be treated the way the senator treated her because she got pregnant? If you were in her shoes, would you have forgiven Senator Donald after everything? Share your comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please like and share so others can learn about the power of love and forgiveness. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Roots of the African Tales for more stories that inspire hope and healing like this.